while he's sharing the doc with you, I'll go ahead and go through this lengthy-ass intro. All right, so we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, welcome to the first ever LNS Roundtable. This will be a new show that we will do once a month where we discuss a topic and allow live call-ins from our chat via Skype, which means that you guys can also come in and voice your opinions and all that fun stuff.
Can we all get swords to lay in the middle of the table?
No, we should, though. We should. Sadly, we do not have swords to pass out. We got foam pickaxes, though.
Yes.
Yes, foam pickaxes. That's right.
And this is not an intervention.
Yes,
it's a reckoning.
Yeah.
Much more subtle.
Yeah, it's much more
in your
subtle.
face.
Sorry, I watched Tombstone recently.
This month, we're actually discussing gaming addiction and how much it affects our daily lives. Before we start actually going around and discussing this, Randark did some awesome research. I probably actually should say who's on the show right now. I am SirViper4580. With me this month, I should say, is DJPimpDaddy.
This month? This year?
This year?
We're bros, dude.
Yeah!
Yeah. Okay, keep going. This isn't a...
Also with us is Randark for this episode.
Hi, guys. How are you?
And in a last-minute effort to bring some comedy into this show, we got Fondre from Geek Culture Happy Hour.
Hi, I just logged in and got added to the show.
And when he saw the topic, he became terrified.
The after show is going to be Scott asking DJ, why did you do that?
There's some truth to this.
I'll be on my best behavior.
Ish.
Yeah, anyway, let's go ahead. I'll go through this lengthy intro that we have. To basically start off this conversation, Randark did some research and he found a nice little blurb from techaddiction.ca. I don't know what's the CA extension.
It's Canada.
Canada? Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a site all about game and computer addiction. So I'm going to read this verbatim here real quick. It says, currently there is no single universally agreed upon definition of video game addiction. There is no set number of hours one must play in order to be considered an addict to video games. Most definition of video game addiction refers to excessive play which results in negative emotional, social, relational, educational, or career-related consequences. Instead of devoting energy to real-world, in quotation mark, activities and pursuits, a video game addict spends most of his or her time playing games. Someone who has developed a video game addiction prioritizes gaming accomplishments over all other activities such as spending time with friends and family, school achievement, work performance, and interpersonal relationships. Video game addiction may also be defined as a serious loss of control over gaming that leads to a significant harm in the significant harm for the player in the real world. So, a couple of the bullets that it mentions here, which if we scroll down on the doc, kind of see those. Two genres of video games can easily kind of be used to describe this. MMOs being one of them, and then first-person shooters that have multiplayer online. A big example of that is Call of Duty. So I know me personally, I'm an avid World of Warcraft fan. I've played the hell out of that game. Randark and Fondre, I know you guys have played World of Warcraft. Yeah. And, of course, we got DJPimpDaddy, who's the odd man out, who plays Lotro.
Hipster. I'm better than everyone else. I gotta play a game that 3 other people play.
Ah, yes. And so it begins.
Yes. Hey, I'm just saying you play a different game that you were the odd man out. I curse you out for it.
You might as well be playing Skyrim.
Nonetheless, we can obviously kind of point out how MMOs have affected our lives. So let's kind of start with that. I don't want to keep talking, though, so someone else kind of start explaining your situations that you've developed through gaming.
Well, this is the 8th anniversary of WoW this week. And just think it's been around that long is just mind-blowing. I don't know any other game that's lasted that long on PC. And I haven't looked it up, but I have 3 I had 3 level 85 characters. I had 2 level 60s back in vanilla, which is just hard to do to begin with. And I think I just got dropped from the call.
No, you're right.
Oh, okay. um, and I, when I was in the Navy, I would literally go to work. I'd stop by the comic book shop, pick up my comics, and I would sit at home. I'd cook a pound of pasta for myself each night, and I'd play video games from the time I got home till about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Wow. Chris,
And mostly World of Warcraft.
I guess, like in that situation, though, I mean, since you were in the Navy, you're like stuck on base. Were you single at the time?
I was single, but I had an apartment out in town.
Okay. Huh. Interesting.
I had a car. I had plenty of money to do stuff I wanted to, but I chose to sit there and play games with people I'd never met.
Interesting.
Well, let me propose a subject or a topic, and that's like we're talking about World of Warcraft, and Randark hit on what he did after work. You were productive, you did stuff, and then when you're off, you're like, I'm going to relax and do something. You know, we're talking about gaming addiction, and usually the ones pointing the finger at gaming addiction are the ones saying, oh, you're doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. And they're going home and vegging out in front of the TV, or they're going to some hipster bar so they can talk about pointing fingers at other people and just getting drunk, and, you know, that's their thing to do. Why there's probably not a hard definition for gaming addiction, it's because people are used to spending 40 hours in front of their TV and no one's saying anything. And now we're actually doing something with our time. And do people really want to point their fingers at us while we're actually doing something, while they sit there and do nothing?
Mm-hmm. That's a valid point. There's definitely just a significant chunk of people that come home every day and sit there and watch several hours of TV, and you're totally right. The only thing we're doing different is we're interacting with people, maybe playing games.
Well, except for you and Lotro, you're not.
Anyways,
you guys will be playing Korean MMO
where you can't understand anybody. But I guess a significant line would be if people are watching TV, they have the chance to sort of do other stuff at the same exact time. Whereas when you're gaming, for the most part, you're concentrated a lot more. You're focused on the event. I have realized that my 10-second backstory. I've been playing games since fucking Nintendo days. And I've definitely put in my time, but up until this year, I have completely avoided playing most MMOs, and the only reason I started playing Lotro even after we stopped it for the podcast was, I
justify it to us.
My entire life, I really have enjoyed reading the Tolkien stuff, so running around that world is more like sightseeing for me. So that's why I'm in that. But having said that, I find myself playing more and more of that game just because it's like I'm totally hooked on the MMO thing where I'm seeing numbers going up, constantly. But yeah, I still do constantly get this oppressive feeling in the back of my head like this game doesn't end, so the numbers will just keep going up, and I'll just keep playing and playing and playing and playing, And I have actually totally seen a complete flip of my entire Steam numbers. Like, I used to put in, 8 or 9 hours a week in one game, and a couple hour here and there on a bunch of stupid games, and now it's like 15, 20 hours a week pure Lotro and maybe 30 minutes on something else. So
yeah, well, one of the bullet points that I believe were on here is that when it comes to games, I mean, obviously it's hard for us to kind of sit here and talk about addictions because obviously we have enough control in our lives to know that when the hell to put the game down and go to work, for the most part.
Correct.
There goes Scott showing off.
I love you too, Fondre. But no, I think what it's trying to point at towards, and you touched on this a little bit, DJ, is that in cases of MMOs and in cases of like multiplayer first-person shooter games, it's easier to get addicted to those games. And actually, Minecraft is an excellent point from this too. Those games don't have a definitive end. You know, even with MMOs, you know, yeah, you can get to the top level, but now you got all this raiding to do. You're done with that? Oh, you got 9 other classes to play through if you'd like to. You know, so there's always something to do. There's always something to continue that addiction. And in those cases, I think that's what, you know, gaming addiction is trying to point towards, is that, you know, you have these games where you can just drop 40, 50 hours a week and you've scratched the surface. You haven't done nothing. So in these cases, you have those guys. Like, I remember reading a story about someone who was so addicted to World of Warcraft that they actually died of dehydration because they would not drink. They would not go to the bathroom. They pissed on themselves and defecated on themselves and basically died because they were so into the game they could not bother to get up, feed themselves, drink, and use the bathroom.
Yeah.
And in those cases, you know, the worst part about that is, is that unfortunately,
You didn't understand what flight paths were for. That's the worst part.
I see what you did there. But no, the worst part about it is that unfortunately, when one person does that, the entire community gets blamed for something like that.
Yeah, yeah. See, those are isolated, extreme cases, but you definitely do hear a lot more cases where people are like kids are being ignored, you know, in the background. Like when you have a wife and kids, it's the subtle impacts are much greater. Does that make sense? And one thing I did want to point out, I don't think I'm going to play the trailer because it's screwed up in the translation between FLAC to MP4. I recently watched a documentary on Netflix, and you could actually stream it as well, I think, right now. It's called Second Skin, and it's by a
God.
yeah.
Okay.
It's been a while. I think it came out in 2008, if I'm looking right. But
I think it's been longer than
I
that.
think
they show a mix back and forth, a sample, a cross section, as you will, of people playing mostly on EverQuest 2 and World of Warcraft, and it was fascinating because, you know, they showed a guy who basically almost lost it all because he was gaming every night, and then at the same time they also showed people falling, you know, stories of people falling in love online and meeting in real life. So it wasn't just a whole let's bash on this one guy from, you know, who lost his job and his health because of, you know, WoW. But I have heard a lot of negative criticism about this film. However, it has won several awards. I mean, a lot of awards.
I think it did an alright job. It came out, it had to be because it was kind of covering EverQuest and the beginning of World of Warcraft.
Correct.
But it was alright. I think it did a good job of elaborating on the online life. But, you know, you guys were talking about the guy who just peed himself till he died or whatever, and that's a whole different issue, I believe. I think that's a guy with more mental disorders than a gaming addiction. You know, it was either games or it was going to be something else.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's still part of that gaming addiction that kind of caused that. I mean, I'm not saying that it was the main reason why, but I'm sure the gaming addiction didn't help. Yeah. And so I totally agree. That's Darwinism at its finest. Basically. So, trust me, I totally understand. If it wasn't like World of Warcraft, it probably would have been him getting hit by a car because he's like walking across the street. But that's not the point. The point is that he got so wrapped up into the game that he just lost complete control. And there's people that have done that playing Black Ops and Modern Warfare 3, where they, you know, I don't know if it's gone to the point where they died, but they had to go to the hospital because of dehydration. So it's ridiculous to get to that point.
Yeah, I think it's just finding a balance. And, DJ was hitting on how long he's been playing games. And I remember back in the day when I was an old man on the porch, playing games like on the NES. And mainly the social interaction was making sure you had your friends around you
Yeah.
and passing the controller around. Accusing each other of cheating, like, oh, you were looking at the one button I hit on Tecmo Bowl, so you must have been cheating. That's how you knew the play I was wrong.
Wow.
And that's one thing we grew up with that. And then I don't know about you guys, but I also did my fair share of playing outside and things like that. But the older I got, work, kids, and all that fun stuff, I still needed that social interaction, and where the online community offered a little bit more interaction with adults as opposed to just with kids. I found it. But you also have to make sure you don't forget you have kids, and I've seen that before, that people neglect everything outside their life. And like, I admit, I used to play World of Warcraft a whole lot, and I'd log on and the same people would be online. And I'm like, if they're always online when I log on, how many hours are they playing?
Oh, yeah, wasn't it you guys that once told a story about your previous guild before Bound, like your guild leader just broke down at the end of a raid or something?
Right, yeah.
When did that happen? He's like, I'm not used to beating anything. You guys,
we're accomplishing things. No, the problem with that was that I firmly believe that his social interaction, his sole source of social interaction, was through the guild that we were in. If it wasn't for us, he'd have no friends, sort of thing. And that's another point that you really need, kind of in that case too, is that when your MMO life becomes your replacement for your real life, and you laugh.
Well,
I've seen that so many times.
I in my case, that a lot of my people that I talk to outside of work tend to be online these days, and it's simply because I have my kids are young, and we can't, taking them out solo is just a freaking nightmare because they just run around like monkeys on crack. We'll go to the park and just let them run, but for the most part, we play outside in the yard, and we don't really go in too much into the neighborhood. Everybody in my neighborhood, I feel like I'm in an isolated desert, but I'm in the suburbs. It's like nobody in my neighborhood ever comes outside. I'm good friends with my neighbors, but they got their busy lives, so they don't hang out as much anymore. And all of my friends they all have their own kids, and they live like halfway across town. And some of my friends have moved away, like states away. So I'm just like, I just don't go out anymore. So yeah, I come home, and you fuck faces are my entertainment for the night.
So what you're saying, welcome. DJ, is your nightly decision is either I play Lotro or I hang out with the crackhead kids.
Yeah, pretty much. That sounds fantastic.
To the Shire!
Away from you!
Well, that or driving trains.
Yeah, trains. Oh my God! Real quick, did somebody put a comment on my train video, and he said, "Can you re-record this without the kid?" I'm like, oh.
Wow.
They totally missed the point.
It just don't understand the LNS crowd, apparently. Fondre, I got a question for you. And the only reason why I'm asking this to you is because we've seen so many occurrences of this because of our experiences together in World of Warcraft. What would you find worse? Having it where your sole social interaction is online in World of Warcraft, or when your dating life is solely on World of Warcraft?
Or in the
dating
butt.
Life.
Dating life.
I'm okay with the social life. Okay, hopefully you have friends in your real life, and you hang out, you have a few beers and things like that. But like DJ was just saying, your real life friends, your coworkers get so busy, and they live across town, and it's sometimes a real hassle to plan a regular interaction. That being online, hey, you find this community in your group that has the same hours, and hey, they are there. It's fun to hang out with them, and if you get to know them, even better.
Mm-hmm.
What's sad is, and this is gonna sound rude, but either way, there's a lot of dudes and a lot of chicks or women that I play online with, and they don't have a significant other, and they live online. And that goes to the dating life. I'm like, if I was any age and didn't have a wife and have the kids, I probably wouldn't be on that long. It's because I have those needs of finding another person, not for quote unquote scoring, but to be able to go out and seek another individual.
Yeah.
And when you do that online, you open up the door to all kinds of crazy, Scott, and you know that as well as I do. I mean, the insanity.
I got one name for you. Sticky Fingers.
Stick me.
Man, she's prime example.
Yeah, and the problem is she ended up. And this goes both ways. I'm not just singling out her as a woman because it goes both ways with men. But yeah, this person decided to play two different men in our guild that needed that love life online. And they needed a love life, and they looked online for it, and they lived hundreds of miles apart from each other.
Wow.
And yeah, one of them I talked to, and he's like, yeah, I'm on my way up to Illinois. I'm like, you live 1,200 miles away. I know. She's moving in with me. I can't wait.
Wow.
But having like the social interaction, one of the things that I've learned over the last few years of playing World of Warcraft and the guild that we're in, bound on the server Staghelm US, is that we made efforts and we have met quite a few people in that guild, and we've become real life friends and online friends.
Yeah. Well, you guys are lucky because you got a big base of you right there in Dallas, Fort Worth. That really helped to set that up.
Well, absolutely. But the first time we met in person was when we all went to BlizzCon. We coordinated meeting up, and after that, we kind of hit it off because, hey, if you haven't met someone online, my first rule of thumb is don't invite them to your house. Meet at a neutral location, whether it's a social interaction or a love life interaction. Somewhere where, if you need to run, you can. And being at BlizzCon, not sharing hotel rooms and stuff like that, you get to know each other. Hey, and if you hit it off as friends, cool. Then you get to hang out. But yeah, you're right, Randark. I mean, we can go up to Dallas. It's a 5-hour drive, and we get to hang out with about 10 different guildies.
But yeah, the big point, though, being that if you try to use your online life as your love life, that's pretty depressing.
Yeah.
It's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of you guys are married. I mean, if you didn't have a significant other in your life, do you think you'd be playing more or playing less?
More. Easy answer, more.
If I didn't have a wife, I actually think I'd be playing less. And I honestly think that. I mean, I'm not going to go into details, but I'm in a situation now where I'm spending a lot more time away from my computer. So, yeah, I think if I was forced to date, I would be spending less time in front of my computer. I think maybe I'm just an odd man out.
Or to go find that date. I'm saying you had no one. You'd have to go find that someone to go date, and that takes time. And I love games, and I'll always play them. I'm just talking about more or less.
Yeah, sadly, I think I probably would actually play more. I think the reason
the Shire.
The reason I play so much now is my wife and I, we get away without having too much sitters, because she works a lot of evenings and I work Monday through Friday during the day. So it's almost as if we're single parents most of the time. Like, I get home, we have dinner, and then she goes to work, and then I have the kids to myself the rest of the night. So it's like I'm so sick of watching and playing with trains that by the time I get them in bed, I'm like, okay, I need to go fucking just shoot something, right? So I don't know. If I was single, I think I probably, given my history and love of games, I probably would play more. But yeah, at the same time, I think I would be a lot more social trying to find Mrs. Right, like, if that was the situation. And I have long before I met my wife, I actually did like meet, I think, two people that I talked to for a very long time, from back in the AOL days.
Wow.
I met one of them, and it was like a date kind of a thing, and it was a fucking disaster, man. Like, I mean, it was one of those dates where, like, minutes after I got there, I wanted to go home.
Based on
Sounds about right.
It was very awkward, It was complete, like, it was one of those, like, bait and switch things. You're like, at least it was a woman and not a dude. I gotta say that much. But it was like, we gotta go before my husband gets home. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, I see why your name is Sam now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next part of this. The next tag is from financial issues. This is not typically an issue for children, but adults and adolescents may find themselves spending large sums of money, I don't know what they're talking about, on new computer equipment, consoles, subscription fees, and of course new video games. Additionally, financial difficulties can occur when the person loses the motivation to work, a frequent occurrence, has his or her hours reduced due to poor job performance, or is fired. I can go ahead and start off on this one myself, because when you look at the value of my Steam account, it's about $5,000 worth of games. So
Yeah.
I think
Scott, I mean, what about you in gaming? I mean, I know you from World of Warcraft, but you got this whole late night steamer thing going on. And what are you averaging in hours per week playing the Steam library? And are you doing it for show research, or is the show fuel your gaming plan?
All right. I gotta be honest. First and foremost, if I take my most, like, if I take the least couple of months, or the last couple of months, sorry, I'm tripping on my words here. I can't really say anything in those regards because I've been just so busy with other things. Prior to LNS, though, and I was already building a relatively large Steam library by that point. I was spending that much time playing all those games, doing all that, because I was freaking doing nothing. I was sitting at home playing games all day. So, and at work, I even played some games at work. So, yeah, I was spending money on these games and playing these games all the time. So I was averaging about, oh God, if I had to guesstimate, maybe 60 hours a week minimum.
Wow.
But you used to be also, from back in our WoW days when we played a whole lot, you seemed like an equal PC gamer / console gamer.
At that point in time, yes. But I've recently abandoned, well, not even recently, for the past year now, I've pretty much abandoned consoles. And I've been strictly a PC gamer.
Yeah.
So, in fact, pretty much all of my gaming revolves around Steam to some degree.
Yeah, I don't know. I stick around consoles mainly if it's like a co-op shooter. Like me and my buddy love playing the co-ops, in real life together. So, like Borderlands 2 is an instant buy on the PlayStation 3.
There's nothing that's an instant buy on the PlayStation 3.
Borderlands 2.
Wow.
Get it on a 360. The loading
Anyway.
is better. I'm just saying.
I abandoned my 360 after my HDMI cable went out.
Loading a game on PlayStation 3 is basically like dragging a dead body uphill. It's not.
Borderlands 2 has no download and no load time on it. It's different from 360.
I'm going to kick you both from the call.
Every other game, you're right.
I don't believe that. I really don't.
It doesn't. I was surprised because I was like, I went and bought Borderlands 2. I was real excited. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to wait 3 hours while it downloads onto the PlayStation 3. Because, my game disc is 40 miles away and my PlayStation 3's in my living room, apparently.
Well, I found let's see, there was a retweet by Robert Boyd over at Z Boyd Games today, and I saw this retweet and I laughed my butt off, because it is so topical to our discussion right now. He said, this kid said, gamers won't pay $2 for mobile games. They buy dozens of $5 Steam sale PC games they never play and gladly pay $20 for vague promises of a game. Dude,
There you go.
it is so perfect because he was arguing that nobody buys the iOS games. Steam sales make everyone go freaking nuts, and then they pay, and then he was sort of picking on the fact that of the success of these the freaking startup. What is it? The
Kickstarter.
Yeah, the Kickstarter. Yeah. For games that don't even exist.
You know what I love about Kickstarter is Double Fine, a company that's been around forever, asking me for money for their next game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty spectacular. Oh, well, you don't even believe in it, so why?
I'm giving an
laughed-
established
I laughed
company
by
money
it.
on that, though.
I laughed my ass off when I saw Penny Arcade on Kickstarter. I was like, what? Anyway, there's an interesting point on chat which I want to bring up just because it cracks me up a little bit. Gunther Corp says 99% of my console use is Netflix.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
to me.
it's
My 360 for me personally is
Totally.
nothing more than a Netflix Hulu box.
same here, man.
Yeah, and I needed a Blu-ray player, so I got the PlayStation 3, and I was like, the added bonus is I didn't have to pay to have an online account like I did with my Xbox, and I completely agree with that.
I updated my TV a couple months ago. I got a new 55-inch smart TV, so I don't use my console for Netflix. But because I upgraded my TV, I found myself going back and playing more Wii games than I have been.
Huh.
Oh, we're gonna talk about the financial part, and I had to ask this because I think Randark, you're the big Team Fortress guy, right?
Oh, don't even remind me. Almost.
Yeah.
It's like 159 hours.
Yeah, I thought, I know he's sitting there like, God, I hope they don't mention this, but I have some Jim Beam in me, and I got the memory of an elephant. So, what about Team Fortress? It's a free game, but you how many thousands of hours you have? You tweeted it or emailed me, like the amount of time you played it.
Oh yeah.
Well, if we start back in the day, when I was in high school and the first mod came out for Quake, I played almost every day after school, and I never did homework. And actually, that was one of the best decisions I ever made. But I'm not going to get into how that is the case. Stay in school, kids. But I would come home and I'd sit there and play that. My mother would force me to get off so my brother could play. And I joined elite clans to play online matches, and I was like 15 years old at the time. But then I stopped playing that and got into real life for a while. And then Team Fortress 2 came out, and I built a new computer. And back then, it still cost me money. And it cost me $20, I think, when I bought it. I would come home every day from work into my new house I have a 2,000 square foot house, and the only room I sat in was my office to play Team Fortress from the time I got home till the time I went to bed. And I logged 1,160 hours to this point playing that game.
Wow.
What about other stuff? Have you bought like the Team Fortress little knickknacks?
I have no knickknacks for the game. I've never paid for any of the keys in the game. Everything I have in the game, I earned it in the game or I traded for it in the game.
Okay, so you're only guilty of spending large sums of money on new computer equipment.
Including my MAME cabinet, yes.
Sounds about right.
Now, I know in my case, Lotro is actually the first game where I've consistently been paying a monthly subscription or ongoing money for. How much could you guys even estimate how much you've paid to Blizzard at this point?
I mean, really, it's not a whole lot. You're thinking $15 a month times 12. It's got to be $45.
$180.
Plus the expansions.
This is fantastic.
It's $180 a year.
Yeah, for the last year I've paid like 3 months worth, but 8-year-old game, 7. I mean, $1,000 or so for that much entertainment and meeting a lot of different people, but it's not really about paying for that, but meeting friends. Me and Scott, he's my online brother from another mother, probably 3 mothers. I mean, our genes are pretty jacked up.
It's pretty true. It's pretty true.
Yeah, and really for that amount of money that I've got my online entertainment, but I've also made a lot of friends that I could go hang out with Scott tomorrow, and it would be weird for about 30 minutes. But after that, it would be a lot of fun. It'd be like we haven't lost a step, even though we're not online talking to each other.
I think it'll only be weird because you'll try to frickin' hand me a beer.
Oh yeah, no, that would be for sure.
Yeah.
That's a
Come
whole
on,
different
man.
addiction.
It's just a beer.
The
dude.
kiss was
anyway.
uncalled for.
Oh, like the ass grab wasn't.
Hey,
So,
you got a
DJ,
nice
have you been
ass.
feeling the pull of the addiction with playing Lotro? I mean, aside from it being Lord of the Rings, have you felt the pull of the MMO?
Yeah, I definitely have, because I being a longtime role player, I love seeing those incremental numbers going up. I love gaining more and more power, and it's just like God. It's like it's so open ended. Like, and I have at least taken the time to enjoy the journey. So I've spent probably a full 2 or 3 hours total in game fishing. It's like shit like that, and I had fun doing it, but I don't know. I have definitely. I have had several sessions where I put the kids to bed and I start playing, and I know I have to work the next day. And next thing you know, I look up and it's like midnight, and I work early, and of course I usually get up at like 5 a.m. So I go to work the next day. I think the thing that really sparked me into thinking about this gaming addiction, it was two things. I watched that Second Skin, and I enjoyed the documentary, and I'm like, cool, I'd love to talk about this to some other guys. And then the other thing was, I realized that while I was at work, I've been daydreaming of shit I want to do in Lotro when I get home. Does that make sense?
Oh
Absolutely.
my God,
Who
Fondre,
hasn't done that?
Fondre, remember when we used to make those MS Paint raid plans?
Yeah.
We were at work or whatever. We were using MS Paint to draw up the little rooms. It's like, all right, everybody's gonna stack up here.
Wow.
Filagun's gonna die here.
Oh yeah,
Good
yeah. I
times.
mean,
Good
make
times.
some strats. We're at work, getting the most bang for our buck for our employer, and
Yeah.
MS Paint. Time to draw out some schematics.
Yeah.
Because of podcasts, I have literally taken notes while doing my work. I'm like, oh, I need to go explore this area to go get this item.
So yeah, I definitely hear you on that.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on various Lotro wikis in my free time at work.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and I've done that on the wikis. I mean, that made kind of World of Warcraft have more meaning. Finding the story behind a lot of the characters and stuff. But that only meant another 20 hours a week.
Yeah, yeah. All right, but yeah, we don't want to solely go on MMOs here. It's one of the bigger ones to be addicted to, of course. But anywho, we're gonna go ahead and move on. The big question is, what are the risk factors for video game addiction? I found this first bullet very funny. Being male, apparently, is a risk factor for video game. This is from techaddiction.ca.
Well, it's that Canadian socialist medicine. They figured this out.
I read
Hold
that,
on.
and you know what? I don't think it's fair, because it's just the general populace that plays video games to the degree that you could get addicted are male. It's not. I don't think it has anything to do with it being one sex or the other. That is something that's always been associated with males, and so the males go do that.
Well, here's in the movie Second Skin. There was a couple that was playing, and then of course as soon as the wife got pregnant, she had to completely give up gaming to take care of the kid. Whereas in the movie they sort of portray the husband as douchey because he keeps playing, he keeps raiding with his guild late into the evening while she's trying to care for the kid. Now obviously
He's not the one that got pregnant. I'm kidding.
For some reason, DJ, that reminds me of a story that I read about a woman who actually, I think she accidentally killed her infant because she was spending too much time on Farmville and didn't feed her child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I recall that.
Yeah, and I I don't think it's necessarily that the female drops the baby and goes, oh, okay, time to be responsible. It's just, the good ones get responsible, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with the whole being male thing, but whatevs.
Well, there's a bad story about two World of Warcraft players that met in Galveston, and I shouldn't even mention it, but they ended up killing like their 3-year-old daughter,
Oh man.
like throwing her off the seawall and stuff.
Wow.
Good times. Let's get this going.
Anyways, the next bullet point.
Yeah, the next
They had addictions. This is what it's about.
Actually, no. What's funny is that that's a perfect segue into the next bullet. Having higher levels of trait aggression and neuroticism. So there you go. Foundry actually kind of segued into that.
I wish I would have had the show notes pulled up.
Yeah, you did it off the cuff, man. You don't even need it. But yeah, having higher levels of trait aggression and neuroticism. I could see the aggression. I could definitely see the neuroticism. So, you're probably.
So aggression, like, I don't know. We played with plenty of people that had too much aggression online, Scott, and I always thought that it was more because their real lives were quite a bit sadder, and their employers or people around them put all the aggression on them, so they got online to take it out on everyone else.
Well, I think the point actually goes more towards like first-person shooters, more specifically like Xbox Live, because
No,
like
those 12-year-olds, they can go to hell.
it's not even 12-year-olds. I remember watching a video of this guy who was so pissed off that he died that he took video of it and went on. He's like, "This ain't fucking realistic. This nigga fucking shot me from this distance, and that's bullshit. Who fucking does that? Who even uses that gun in that distance?" And he's so mad that he's got to basically go to YouTube to prove his point. And I can kind of see where the aggression kind of comes from in the first-person shooter aspect of it, where it's just like, it becomes their life at that point.
You haven't played Team Fortress with me while I'm drinking heavy yet.
I don't think we've done it competitively, no. But you have.
DJ has. DJ saw what I do. Oh, I get angry and I start yelling at people, and mostly I'm challenging them to do better than me.
I think we've recorded video of this somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
You're usually talking shit to the other team guys who aren't in our guild, So.
Is that the same part where Randark strips all his clothes off during the game and goes, "I can still do better than you"?
That was what was that?
Fallen Earth.
No, Fallen Earth. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm butt naked riding a horse. Your excuse is invalid. Let's do this.
Wow. All right. So yeah, I could kind of see that. The next point is, and I don't completely understand this one myself, but I'm sure you guys can kind of add to this. It says positively evaluating one's personal intelligence and negatively evaluating one's social skills.
It's saying that I'm so much better than you at Call of Duty, and you're just a nerd that sits in his basement and does nothing all day.
Is that what that means?
I guess.
It's always people dogging one another. I mean, it really, whenever I run into that situation, it's typically running into the 12 to 16-year-olds on Xbox or the 18 to 24-year-olds on Xbox that are high all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The next point says favoring online role-playing games. Now, we've already talked ad nauseum now about MMOs. I mean, we got Lotro and WoW that we've talked about. So, and that could definitely be a pretty fair point, considering, again, you spend so many hours grinding these characters, and, you get to that point where you want to keep going. It's like, I need to get higher. I need to get better.
Yeah.
Even first-person shooters have adopted the role-playing style and added leveling and advanced weapons for basically length of time playing.
Well, that's practically an entire free-to-play model now, for any game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's definitely a very fair point. This next one, having a greater degree of impulsivity at I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
And limited ability to regulate emotions.
Hey!
So,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Get out, mate!
The rage quit.
Yeah.
I throw the mic down and end the call.
Well, out of the last, the 3 out of 4, it seems like these relate more to the first-person shooters, and then, if you don't fit these 3, they're going to knock you out with the 4th one of online role-playing games. I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22 because the FPS is, yeah, you got aggression. You're out to murder face as many people as you can. It does build up the intensity, and that's probably where the aggression comes out. And then to regulate emotions, that definitely falls into it. A little bit in MMOs. I mean, like World of Warcraft or picking beats and Lotro. Like, oh, I should have got that beat.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can still be aggressive and have the neuroticism issues with like MMOs, especially PvP oriented MMOs like Guild Wars and World of Warcraft. I mean, you can still have that aggression in there too. So I mean, it can go both ways.
Oh no, it
I've had-
definitely fits in there.
I've had rage quits just when I'm achievement hunting in World of Warcraft. I've taken my headset, thrown it down, and said, "Fuck you, game."
Fuck this game! Yeah, I hear you on that. And then, of course, there's this last point, which definitely... Oh, I moved the A on accident. Having a lot of free time and little involvement in structured activities outside of work or school. In my case, for the past 6 years, it's been because I'm married and I didn't have anything to fucking do. I can't go out to the club and pick up chicks. Yeah. Like, what am I gonna do?
But you've also found you have other things that take up free time. I think it's when you have any amount of free time, you say, I'm going to go play games.
Yeah.
You have your bands, you have kids, you have the wife, and, that all takes time. But, the little free time you have, or if you have a whole lot, you're like, I'm going to go play Call of Duty or any.
Yeah. Real quick, just to interject this right here. We were talking about how other games might do this. Let's see, Minecrafter 7098 actually just messaged me in Skype, and he just wanted to put in that he said gaming is only addiction if you find the right type of game for you. For example, he rented Skyrim for Redbox, bought a copy from eBay, and played 6 hours per day the rest of the summer. So, that's not even an MMO. It's a single-player experience, and he still, put a ton of hours in it. 6 hours a day for the entire summers. That's a lot.
You should have just canceled the credit card that Redbox was on. That's Fondre's book of financial wisdom.
Oh my god. Or my sister, she gets those little gift cards and uses those. Anywho, we're not here to cheat Redbox. We're never going to get sponsored by those guys. But anywho, oh god. But no, it's a very fair point. I mean, the gaming addiction can be caused just by finding the right game. So it's a very fair point. So, but yeah.
Is it addiction, or is it finding something you're like, wow, I'm really enjoying this? Because I do play some games, but like Borderlands 2 took up a lot of time. But before that, there wasn't too much else, and I don't just play games to be playing games. If I find a really good one, yeah, I'm going to spend time with it.
I think, on that point, I think in the past, I rarely put more than 100 hours in a game. I think that the only reason I ever even came over 60 hours in a single game was just because they just kept making RPGs longer and longer and longer. But for the most part, they were all, single-player games, like Dragon Quest VIII. Good God, that game is like 120 hours, I think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think before I really started playing online games, there really wasn't one game that I really got sucked into. There was a ton that I love, and I still would go back and play every now and then. But, yeah, I think it was the first one that I put a ridiculous amount of time in was probably Minecraft.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
I'd have to say for me it was Mortal Kombat 3 on Genesis.
Wow.
Wow, you're going on the Wayback Machine, dude.
Man, yeah, but that if you go even further back, I mean, back in the day, I mean, you had NES and Super Mario Brothers. I'd put endless amount of time, and that's what I'm trying to explain to my kids now as they're growing up and playing a lot of games. I'm like, do you know back in the day that when you died 4 or 5 times, you would have to start the game all the way over?
Yeah.
We actually had that discussion here on LNS not too long ago, didn't we? It was one of our steamer discussions about our games becoming too easy.
I See Dead Kittens just said, I feel gaming addiction isn't just playing a game a lot, it's also the mentality of constantly thinking about it, even when you're not playing. I play games more than I should, but my social life is fine because I only think about games when I'm playing them. So I guess I feel weird now, dreaming about Lotro.
The Shire.
The Shire, Hobbit Fest, or whatever
I want to
it is.
skip.
The Shire Fest one.
I don't know, with the instant message you got, it's more about the quality of the game than the quantity of the gaming you're doing. If you're enjoying playing a game a lot and you're enjoying yourself and you're not sacrificing times with kids, and that's a whole different thing. I mean, how many people have we played with, Scott, that have kids and you're like, they got to be ignoring them and they got to be dying in the closet or something.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been concerned about that on a few occasions, but never said anything, obviously. So, going on to the next points, though, it says that most research suggests that massive multiplayer online games, MMOs, like World of Warcraft and first-person shooters like Call of Duty, tend to be more addictive than other genres like platformers, fighters, racers, and casual games. Now, Randark already kind of contradicted that by saying Mortal Kombat. And I think fighters can definitely go up there in addictive games because, again, even though they have certain ladders, you could still go through that ladder about 20 different times with all the different characters. So it's pretty easy to get hooked on certain fighters.
When you have those new, what's League of Legends classified as?
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
MOBA.
MOBA.
MOBAs, yeah. MOBAs are definitely up there.
Yeah.
Fuck MOBAs.
So it says
multiplayer online battle arena, is it?
yeah, multiplayer online battle arena. So anyway, it says in general the most addictive video games are they have no end, which means that someone can play forever without beating the game or receiving a clear signal that the game is over and it is time to move on.
Yeah.
Which again, that's a very big point. The second point is encourage online social interactions with other players, which often requires great dedication and commitment to a team of fellow gamers to accomplish task goals,
Yeah, read,
even if this means neglecting real-world responsibilities.
Read Boku's comment.
Boko says, I think one of the most important ways to form addiction to any game is by adding a human element. For example, in Left 4 Dead 2, which I have sunk over 600 hours into, would not be nearly as addicting without multiplayer. So yeah, he basically kind of touches on that same point as well. And another point to that is, Fondre can attest to this, raiding in World of Warcraft. You get 10, 25 people that you get, and you're all basically trying to get to that final boss. And you sink time into that. And not only when you're raiding, I mean, even when you're not raiding, you're basically trying to get the raid materials. You're trying to get better gear so you can perform better in raids. So yeah, I mean, that's a very fair point.
I See Dead Kitten says the no end thing really is the kicker. Yeah, I have to agree on that too, because like I had mentioned, all of those games that I put 100 hours in the past, they eventually I beat the game, and then you're just like, okay, now what,
Yeah.
Well, other thing, Scott, is, when we're doing that rating and all that, I mean, we really had a group back in our guild that it was fun every minute to be online with that group of 10 or 25 people. I mean, the shenanigans and the things that went on, I look back and I say, that's the most fun I've had while, trying to achieve goals, but at least we had a good time doing
it. Yeah. But I don't think our experience is the norm. So, I'm just
your
saying.
mileage may vary.
Yeah, mileage may in fact vary. This third point says are based on a are based on a variable, I cannot talk tonight, ratio interval reward schedule, which rewards the player after a predetermined average number of in-game responses, and is well established as a form of reinforcement that is best at keeping any behavior, alive, even when rewards become less frequent, which is often true in video games. And that's a tongue twister first and foremost. But yeah, I mean, again, you were talking about in Lotro how you can earn your credits that you can use to purchase the stuff, and another form of that is in Team Fortress 2. You can keep playing and earn certain achievements and stuff like that to kind of keep you going. Certain games have like a new game plus mode where you can play the game at a harder difficulty. In fact, The Legend of Zelda, the original one, when you played it a second time through, they shuffled all the freaking dungeons on you. So yeah,
that was awesome.
That's fucking badass.
It was so good.
You were such a young kid, and you're like, okay, I beat this game, and now I'm going to play it again, and the dungeons will be pretty much completely different. Your mind was blown.
So much harder.
Your brain just didn't blow it out of your head. I mean,
it was like a whole new game at that point. It was a whole new game. But yeah, I mean, that proves the point, though.
Well, but on that point, I think that is more based on Facebook games.
Yeah.
Now. You know, kind of a here, there, a few times.
Things that make you log in every day to do something, you know?
Do you guys think that the new achievement systems where you get achievements for basically kicking a can down the road and then, you get all those easy ones spread real quickly, do you think those are part of the same effort to get people hooked?
Yeah. I think that there was a lot of games that I played on PlayStation that I would have played and beaten and put down if they didn't have some sort of a trophy pop up. And I think before I really got into gaming on Steam, there was a chunk of probably 5 or 6 months where I went all out at trying to get trophies on PlayStation. And if you check back through my blog, you could actually see where, like, every day I was like, okay, I'm trying for this one today, and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it was the same thing. I put way much more time into specific games than I probably would have.
Shit, RC Pro-Am must have kicked your ass.
Oh, man. No. Why do we got to get all nostalgia in here every topic, man? RC Pro-Am was the best.
But it gave you a trophy every race.
But when it comes to achievements, how many times have you been doing something in a game before achievements came along and said, dude, that was just badass. I wish I had something that said, you know what? Fondre was badass because he just hit everyone in the face with an elbow for the 3 levels that he was in. And now achievements say, all right, you do this crazy thing, you finally get some digital kudos. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, I'll go do that.
Oh, man. But I mean, I completely agree with TJ's point, though, because before I got so hooked on Steam, when I was playing on 360, I was the same way. I was constantly trying to get those achievements. So,
and I enjoy the achievements in Steam, but at the same time, I totally realize that they are completely different from Xbox and PlayStation. Xbox and PlayStation, it's like a badge that everybody sees, whereas in Steam, you have to click way down into people's profiles to really see their trophies,
goals, more or less.
Yeah.
Well, let me. Like, all right, I talked about earlier how I mentioned, I'm telling my kids, like, back in the day when you died, you died. The one thing, watching my kids play a game that has maybe a 15-hour game span time, now I see my oldest kid, who's 10, he'll go back and he'll check the achievements and he'll go get them. And that's extending the playtime. Super Mario Brothers is not a 100-hour game, but back in the day it was, because when you died you had to start all the way over.
Yeah.
I know about the continues in Super Mario.
Anyways,
I just said I took the
well, I usually rage quit and smash the box.
But
anyways,
way over our allotted time, but it's okay.
Just last point on achievements and trophies is they, if anything, I think they're a good value because they extend the value of a game. Does that make sense? Like you will typically play a game a little bit longer, and you'll get your money's worth out of it if you do it entertainment to dollar value.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point for those, but I really doubt that is something that would cause addiction. So.
Well, yeah. All right. Real quick, had a quick request. Hi, Coom. There you go. Your friends are now impressed with you. Hitting the final point, and this again kind of touches on what we've already been talking about. Frequently rewarding the player for minimal effort in the early stages of gameplay, and then gradually increasing the amount of time and effort that is necessary to receive a reward as the game progresses.
Oh yes.
And by this time, the player is already hooked. MMOs are guilty of this because you'll first start up that level 1 character and you're like, all right, we're gonna dig in, and you're like, oh man, I'm leveling like crazy. I'm up to level 10 already.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm up to level 20. This is awesome now. All of a sudden you're at level 30. You're like, oh god, why can't I level anymore?
I gotta play a little bit longer.
Dude.
I know I can hit that next level.
I have been hitting all of the deeds in each zone before I really move on, and I finally moved on to the zone near Rivendell, and like it popped up that I had to kill like 300 orcs. I'm like, oh. And like each one of these fights is like, it's a fight, It's not like a run along, smash it, and keep running,
You're in for the long haul.
I'm like, oh, this is gonna hurt,
Yep.
But yeah, it's the same thing, like in the first zone, it's like, kill 5 birds, fucking deeds.
So do we want to go into the options for treating this, or do you just want to say look it up if you need it?
Well, let's go ahead and we'll touch on this stuff real quick.
Just read them real quick.
Yeah.
Just turn this shit off and you're done.
You do 1, I'll do 2, Randark do 3.
Okay, that sounds good. The very first option that you can do in order to conquer video game addiction, according to this, is one-to-one counseling with a psychologist or therapist who has expertise in treating video game addiction. This may be the best option if one is able to find an affordable and qualified therapist in his or her area. But unfortunately, video game addiction specialists remain quite rare, although this is changing as the problem becomes more prevalent.
Well, you know what happens is if you go to your psychologist,
reading
the
these.
first line is,
Damn it,
"Hi,
man.
I'm Philligun. I'm going to help you with this." Just turn around and you run the hell out.
Well,
All right.
Go ahead.
family therapy, which involves modifying the family system's interactions and family dynamics that may contribute to excessive gaming habits. Family therapy is more common when an identified client is a child or teen. Family therapy may be helpful for video game addiction, but it may be quite challenging for all the necessary family members to commit to the process. Thank you, Fondre.
It's always going to come back to Philligun, isn't it? All right.
And
Brando.
then apparently there's video game addiction treatment centers, which offer intensive inpatient recovery programs administered by a variety of mental health professionals. These facilities are far more common in countries like South Korea than in the U.S. Although these programs are extremely expensive, often costing tens of thousands of dollars, there has been very little research on the treatment outcomes. And I have to say, that's going to be one boring-ass fucking place.
Oh, yeah.
No kidding.
It's probably like drug centers where you sit there with a towel around you just shivering like, I gotta find a
Maybe
mushroom.
maybe they just all play poker the whole time.
You probably sit there and talk about all the badass times you had in a video game. In South Korea,
Oh, yeah,
you're probably
dude, I got
talking
this
about
achievement.
StarCraft.
Didn't you?
The number 4 option says wilderness therapy, involving the complete removal of the individual from environments where video games are accessible. Wilderness therapy has been used as an intervention for a variety of child and adolescent behavior problems and is starting to be offered for video game addiction as well. Similar to inpatient treatment for video game addiction, wilderness therapy is generally very expensive and may not be offered locally. Now, just real quick. shouldn't you
Fucking
just
Boy Scouts, dude. Just go camping.
yeah, exactly. Go camping. Send your kid to boot camp. There's the wilderness therapy right there.
Gunther
You'll
Corp
learn a
said,
valuable
AKA
lesson.
go outside and play. You should add in, you fat bastard.
You fat-
I skipped over all the information they had on obesity that goes along with this.
Wow. Glad you did.
Lastly, they had video game addiction books offering self-help treatment for excessive gaming for those who are unable to find a qualified therapist or afford more expensive treatment options. Step-by-step guides to stopping video game addiction for one's or someone else can be very convenient and a helpful alternative.
Do they have those books in PDF?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you can download them from the site.
Yeah, I think Steam sells them through the.
Final page.
No, what's the
Steam
fucking?
selling those like
Yeah, no. What's the fucking the? Oh God, now I gotta look it up. What's the,
Steam selling those is like the cigarette companies giving money to cancer treatment.
Oh yeah. No, it's like the fucking the guidebooks, the Brady guidebooks on gaming addiction, or Prima guidebooks on gaming addiction, available now on Steam. Ooh, 75% off. Oh, that's funny.
It's all right. So there you go. If you want to break your addiction, if you have said addiction, there's the 5 ways to do it now. I think I have to agree with Chat here. Chat pretty much is unanimous about saying just go outside and play.
Yep.
Leave the laptop at home. Go outside and play. Well, there you go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, DJ was saying go outside, join Boy Scouts and stuff like that. My youngest, he's in Cub Scouts. We go camping a couple times a year and say, all right, we're getting away from everything. And, it's just, common sense. There's a lot of stuff to do outside of gaming. Not a whole lot. You gotta buy groceries. You gotta eat.
Yeah.
I think one of the bigger reasons I spend a lot more time thinking about video games is actually the advent of podcasting. I started listening to podcasts, and then of course we eventually made podcasts. But I think, not to give you some praise because we hate giving you guys praise, but I think listening to the Geek Culture Happy Hour has at least started expanding me beyond video game podcasts. Like my podcast roster was all gaming, and then I finally started listening to something where you guys talk about movies and shit. So
yeah, it's the same for me. I found some podcasts about movies and stuff, and I said, "Oh, I can do this."
Specifically for me, I was all World of Warcraft until you guys made Geek Culture Happy Hour, and then that's how I found Late Night Steamer. So yeah.
There you go.
See, Scott, me and you and our relationship has connected other people.
There we go.
I love you, Scott.
I regrettably love you too.
I know.
You're like
your ass.
You're like that mistress I want to get rid of, but I just can't because the sex is too good. Anyway.
Why can't I
The
get you
STDs are worth it. Chlamydia, get rid of me now.
All right, we're gonna move on. So there's a couple questions that comes from this, and I want to ask you guys this, and then we'll of course live chat. I want you guys to answer this as well. And after you guys answer, I'll go ahead and give what Tech Addiction says. Is computer gaming addiction similar to alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and gambling addiction? What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Personally,
it can
for
be.
me, it's not for me. It's not with alcohol. Alcoholism runs in my family, and I've had fights with it, but it's never been anything that really took over. But gambling, I would fall into immediately if I ever spent time in casino.
Yeah. I definitely have to agree that I think it's closer to a gambling addiction because there's risk and reward with a lot of games.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see how gambling addiction, alcohol and drug addiction is more of a consumption type of addiction where you just more sort of thing. But I don't think it can kind of work with gaming at the same time, but I don't think it's the same. I think gambling addiction is closer.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a definite difference between chemical addictions and psychological addictions.
Yeah.
And the problem is a lot of the psychological addictions are That's where it's almost like they're like soft sciences, like philosophy, where it's hard to define something, because it's not like, whereas with a chemical addiction, you could show specific, levels in someone's body of their makeup where they're freaking out because of the you know the loss of the chemical. So
Gotcha. All right, so Icy Dead Kittens pretty much agrees with me and says it's similar to gambling addiction, not necessarily alcoholism or drug addiction. Gunther Corp says not necessarily a physical addiction, though, which I'm assuming is tailing to his earlier comment where he says anything you find enjoyable can be, in fact, addicting.
mm-hmm.
So he's pretty much saying it's all wrapped into one. So moving on, their answer is whereas alcohol and drug addictions involve both psychological and physiological. That's good, about as good as it's going to get, guys. Addiction. Computer game addiction is often viewed as an impulse control problem involving psychological addiction only. I'm just tongue-tying this like crazy. In this regard, computer game addiction has more in common with gambling addiction than alcohol and drug addiction. So, again, gambling. The next question is it possible to play computer games in moderation? What do you guys think?
Entirely.
It's possible. I would... If you're going to start playing MMOs, it's kind of not. Because you're never going to feel like you're good enough in it.
Yeah, it just depends on kind of like what Randark was saying. If you're playing MMOs, if you're playing an MMO and you really, like, you set your goals on getting the digital pretties and being the top-notch raider, you don't have to be number one on the server or in the world, but you want to get that top-end gear, it's hard to play in moderation. If you're looking to get achievements and that's it, and that's your main goal in an MMO or a game, probably, because you can set a time frame of an hour. I'll go do that.
I think even as a further extension of this question, it's a lot harder to play computer games in moderation if you are an office worker with a fucking computer staring you in the face Monday through Friday. I know on my office laptop, I rebuilt it recently, and I did not reinstall Steam. I'm like, I started playing at lunch, and then it got to the point where, like, I ran over my lunch a few times because I just wasn't watching the time, and I'm just messing around in, Oblivion or something. But yeah, it got to the point where I was just like, okay, I need to just, like, at lunch, I just, I go outside and eat my sandwich on a bench or something. I'm like, I just need to stop. I need to stop looking at a screen, so...
Sounds like you have problems.
I do. And I've seen some other people online a few times during the day, so...
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's moderation, but, you come home, do you want to sit out in front of the TV and veg out for 4 or 5 hours, or do you want to kind of, at least do something that you're involved with physically and mentally? Those are two things. I think there's probably a lot of people out there saying gaming addiction, it's real bad, and it's probably started by the TV people.
And the people who complained about, freaking radio addiction or television addiction were the radio guys.
Yeah.
Video killed the radio star.
A real quick thing to throw in, just and I know we sort of struck out the whole fat gamers thing from the doc, but I remember on an episode of The Biggest Loser, my wife and I used to fucking watch that all the time. Bob Harper, one of the trainers on that show, he actually said something to this parent who was just like, I feel like he's getting fat playing games all day, and Bob's like, no, let him play his games, because when he's holding the controller, he's not putting something in his mouth. I'm like, wow.
Wait until he finds out you can move your character by holding both.
Yeah, exactly. The auto run button totally defeats
this.
this.
Ham sandwich is gonna hit my face hole somehow.
Fucking auto run defeats his point. So.
Oh my god, that's crazy though. I have to say, at least in my case, when I first started playing MMOs, I admit I was totally addicted to the point where I was just constantly grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. But then I got to a point where like it was easier for me to moderate once I got to a point where it's like, okay, I know how to get to this, I know how to get to that. I could do this in this time, I could do that in that time, and it became a little easier for me to moderate. Is it possible? Yes. Is it easy to do it? No. It's not possible. And according to Tech Addict, it says yes, most people can and do play in moderation. Bullshit. They play games for casual entertainment as a way to relax and to socialize with friends. However, there are those who are far more likely to become addicted to computer games. For those people, certain games, very often MMOs, appear to present a higher risk of addiction and may need to be avoided, adults, or banned in children's case, in order to prevent unhealthy gaming habits.
Gunther Corp in chat, he said if I could get paid to do YouTube commentary, then awesome. That totally does bring up another thing. I mean, imagine how many people do you see on YouTube that are starting up their own thing, thinking that they're going to be basically paid celebrities playing games. Like, look at the entire, yeah, exactly. We do, but I mean, look at the whole thing of people playing games for charity now. You know, that didn't exist back in the day.
Yeah.
But to adults, you know, older adults who just don't play games, they probably look at these charity telethons and say, okay, those guys have problems, you know. But
as they sit in front of their TV and watch the news.
Exactly.
Get it the old-fashioned way. Back in my day, I used to get it by telegraph.
No, my parents' big thing was just that I was like, well, when we played video games, we had to go to an arcade to do it. We didn't have, any. So that was another thing that they tried to push on me. It's like, go to an arcade and play games, So.
I miss arcades. Those are awesome. But the older I got, yeah, you see arcades charging $1 always or 50 cents at the cheapest for a credit to play. And, that's not acceptable when I can go buy a same high-quality game for $60.
Dude, let me tell you something. There's a place near my neighborhood called Nickel City. All games are a nickel.
There's a successful arcade here in Cincinnati that you go and you pay $15 to get in and everything's free.
Oh, it's even better.
Yeah, and it's a thriving business model here. Like the guy who I have actually been in discussion. The guy that I made the movie with, I was like, I think we should do a documentary on this guy because I mean it's just a fascinating business story. So.
Well, and I agree, but they're saying go to an arcade, but when you're playing online, if you're trying to join or be part of a community in an MMO or in a clan and Call of Duty and stuff, you're still being social. It's just it's less money, I mean, overall, you don't have to pay a quarter every time to play, and you don't have to stand in a line to play someone at Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have computer gaming parlors where you are?
Yes.
Where they just have banks of computers set up? Are they successful?
Somewhat.
Yeah,
they don't
have those here.
Yeah, we got one called the Ignite Network, which you basically get this little membership card, and those cards can be loaded up with hours of gameplay, and you swipe the card on the computer you're using, and you can play games for as long as you want. It's successful in the fact that they haven't ran out of business in 3 years. So I'm going to assume that they're doing well enough to stick around. In fact, they just upgraded 10 of their machines, so I'm assuming they're doing pretty well. But as far as sitting there and socializing with other people, no, I don't really see that too much.
I really see that more as a foreign country sort of experience.
We here in Rochester, we had it was a big board gaming place called Millennium, and they opened up a place called Cyberstorm, and eventually combined them into one place. And there was always a ton of people over on the board game side, either playing Magic or board games or whatever. But the Cyberstorm side always seemed dead, and I never understood why why after that was doing so badly, they combined them and not just drop it.
I think it's more because most people in America now, just about everybody has a fucking computer.
Mm-hmm.
The prices of computers in America have it's been ridiculous how cheap they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the ones that don't are going to those to the American internet cafes to peruse porn.
Yeah.
No one wants to be next to that guy.
But yeah,
like,
Randark, there are a few places that just still do like hardcore board gaming. Those places exist in Cincinnati. But yeah, I have never seen a computer, gaming parlor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna wrap things up. So if you got something to say, go ahead.
No, I was gonna see if we only had 2 guys in the chat. I was gonna see if there was anyone who wanted to call in, but I think both of them said no.
Yeah. They've already pretty much just like one rambles too much, and the other I think has a little girl's voice. So.
We'll let you figure out which one is which.
Honestly, I love the guys that we have in chat. They're all fantastic. So, and they've really, I mean, this is why you need to come to our live streams, because chat, Gunther Corp says we're both. Our live chats are always very entertaining, and you guys have been fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming out and chatting with us. And we didn't get to do any call-ins, but at least we had live chat very active, and definitely do it. So that's it. Next month we'll have a new topic for us to discuss. Remember, this is going to be monthly. This is not a weekly thing, because goddammit, I don't think we could figure out enough topics to do monthly. That's why we just stopped doing Steam discussions. But I'm going to put this in chat, techaddiction.ca. That's where we got the majority of the information that we discussed today. If you want to see that site yourself, click on that link. Thank you very much for Tech Addiction for providing that much information. Randark, thank you for bringing that to us.
Hey, it was really easy. It's Google.
Yeah,
and if any of the listeners actually go out and watch Second Skin on Netflix and want to chime in their opinion for or against it or whatever, just email it or send it to us somehow, and we could always discuss it or read them on the air real quick in our next show. So
we also have forums.
That's right.
People should use that. We
do?
We don't get a lot of attention on our forums. We should plug that a little bit more. Forums. All right, so we are out of here.
Yeah.
Did you guys learn anything today?
My guild needs me. No, I'm just kidding.
All three of them must grab their loots.
You need yourself.
I'm playing with
clean the
myself.
house.
DJ, I need me.
Lotro is masturbation for the soul.
There you go. All right. On that note, we're gonna go ahead and end the show.
We'll
All right,
see you guys later.
See you tomorrow for
That's right.
Episode, what is it, 32?
Same bat time, same bat channel.
The actual show.
Yeah, the actual show tomorrow night. We'll talk about new games, give away some stuff, and maybe surprise butt sex.
Maybe Linux will be there.
Maybe.
Sex is never a surprise.